If you're just showing up, thank you, welcome. We're glad you're here. My name is Adam Strong. I'm with OurFondren Neighborhood Association. A couple of logistics before we actually get started with the meeting. So that you know, we're going to have 3 brief presentations. We're going to start with Commander Freeman with the Jackson Police Department, who's going to give us a little information. Then we're going to follow with Jason Meeks with S&E Lock and Key, and finish up with Mr. Andy Case from the Department of Insurance. And for the people who, you know, how these things go, so that people who need to go can go, what we're going to do is we're going to go through 3 presentations in order. They're not going to be very long at all. And then after that, we're going to just do a generic question and answer that'll cover a little everything, and I'll kind of help field that as need be. But that way, for those of you who know that you've got things that you need to go do, you don't have to worry about us getting bogged down on something and you don't get to hear everything. Jason has graciously agreed to do some taping for us, and we'll eventually be posting it to his YouTube channel. And when we get a chance, somebody will post that to Nextdoor and some other social media outlets so that you can actually watch this even if you did have to leave early. So I just want to let you know about that. Where did everybody just go? Before we get started with the actual meeting, there was one other thing that the best laid schemes of mice and men gang off to Glay, as Sir Robert Burns once said, and there was a full intention to do something special for our former Commander McGowan back there after he retired, and well, I plumb forgot, and I apologize for that. So if you would stand, former Commander, we would love to give you a round of applause. Thank you. So, all of this basically comes from last year. You know, we had some problems last year, and we decided we needed an emergency meeting. And talking to then District Commander McGowan and Commander Freeman, Precinct 4, we found that statistically, there's something about the 3rd week of January that we start to see a spike in auto burglary, auto theft, and so we decided this year, I was very adamant about we need to have a meeting the 2nd week of January, try to get as many people as possible, get some information together so that when this starts to happen, we're prepared, that we're being proactive rather than reactive to anything. So that's where all of this comes from. So before the first presentation begins, you do have a handout that is in your chair. So that is available for you to take with you. Also, some of the first chairs on the inside here have some index cards. If you're like me, I will forget something very quickly. If you have a question, you can jot it down there, and that way you have that if you want to ask a question later. Because I know I'll think of 3 things and then somebody asks me something and it's like, oh, I forgot it. So you have that for you as well. So let us go ahead, I guess, and welcome Commander Freeman.
Good evening. Thank y'all for having me. This is one of our better community meetings, always well attended. And I appreciate y'all coming out because that shows the concerns you have in the Fondren area and the Jackson area, and that concerns you, and it also concerns me. And y'all do bring me some problems from time to time I try to help you all with and solve those problems. Precinct 4, now, I have to be completely honest with everybody because those 2 guys back there always bothered me with these numbers. Everything's number driven in the police department when you compare crimes to the previous year. So starting the last quarter of 2016 and all of 2017, Precinct 4 was in the negative. We ended up being the lowest number of crime for 2017 of all 4 precincts. So to say that, that's the good news. The bad news is I don't have the final numbers, but we were in the positive. But we were in negative in some of those categories, but we were positive. So we got to do a better job this next year in 2019. Towards the end of this last month, we saw a big decrease. We had some of the lowest numbers for the whole month of December. Part of that was contributed to the Operation Safe Shop. I don't know if y'all saw the officers out there riding around in the parking lots of shopping centers with their blue lights on. So that contributed and it helped lower our numbers in December. Like this week as an example, we only have 3 felony crimes, and that's really low for 2 days of work. Last week we only had chief and commander. We only had 7 auto burglaries, so it's really good for Precinct 4. So we ended up with a total of 18 felony crimes. So I'm really proud to see that we're going in the right direction. So I don't have any final numbers because the last numbers I got were like the middle of December. They're finalizing those, but I like I said, I want to be honest and tell you we are going to be in the positive, but not terribly bad. But we're going to continue fighting and doing. I love this information you put out.
Well, thank you.
And y'all make sure that you not only share this with each other, your friends and neighbors and stuff, and adhere to it, because we still get calls of people leaving their cars running, convenience stores at home, and they end up getting stolen, leaving things out in sight where it makes it easy for people to break in cars and stuff, and that's always our biggest problem in Precinct 4 is auto burglaries.
Leaving keys in the door overnight.
Leaving keys and doors, and as I shared with her on Facebook that my wife has done the same thing. She couldn't find her keys one day, and I went outside and I looked there, her keys were in the doors. It happens to the best of people. So, that's pretty much it from me. Does anybody have any questions? Do you want to take questions at the end?
We're going to do questions at the very end. Next door, I'm going to remind you that.
Thank you. Sometimes I get to answer you all on next door. Sometimes I don't. I do see things. Thank you for bringing that back up. When you post things on next door, I hope you call 911 first, then post it on next door. Then if you need to call me, sometimes we have some issues that I deal with when I'm off, and I'm fine. I go on vacation, my phone rings, I take care of business. I provide service to you all anytime, any day, even when I'm off or on duty. And that's what I'm here to do, to serve you. And I appreciate it. Oh, now, I have my 2 peers back here. And I would say this if he wasn't here, but Chief Vance was one of the best chiefs we ever got to work on. He and I and Commander McGowan had a lot of things in common, and we agreed with. You go out here and treat the public just like you would want to be treated. That's what I'm trying to instill in our officers, to go out here, and when you talk to the public, how would you want your mother talked to by a police officer? If you do that and be professional, this is what makes Jackson Police Department and the community work together, because we can't accomplish this on our own, and you can't solve it on your own. We have to work together, and I really believe that. I just want to thank both of them back there for the inspiration they've given me. I owe them so much, and I appreciate the job they've done and set before us. Now, some good positive news. We've got 7 new officers in Precinct 4 that started and graduated. They're in their 2nd week of training, so we've got about 10 more weeks before they're turned loose, and hopefully we'll see a difference in more people in cars, more people in the area. That will make a big difference in the crime in Precinct 4. So that's it. If y'all have any questions, get with me after the meeting or give me a call. I'll be glad to help you any way I can.
Thank you, Commander. You know, and he says that, and I know I put that list together, and there's some really great suggestions, and y'all, you know, we're all guilty of something or another, because I read through it and I was like, gosh, I do that. I need to stop doing that. So just keep that in mind, because whether we like it or not, it's coming. It's coming, and we just need to be prepared. So the next person to give us a little discussion is going to be Jason Meeks with S&E Lock and Key.
Hey everybody, how are y'all? So I'm Jason Meeks. I have the locksmith shop over in Fondren. It's been a locksmith for about 38 years now, and I've been there 21 of them, and most people here know me. I've been to a lot of y'all's houses before, so for those who don't know what a locksmith does is most people just think, you know, lock my keys in my car, so call a locksmith. But we actually do a lot of residential, commercial work where, you know, some cases it is where somebody has been broken into But sometimes it's where people look at tips like this that you get from meetings and think, you know, I need to do something better with my locks or my doors. It's very important. I've spoken about this in other meetings, and it's kind of common knowledge. You know, crime is not a great topic for, you know, people don't want to talk about crime, but it does happen. It's pretty necessary for you not to leave your keys hanging in your door, but it does happen. And, you know, keys are pretty much the most important thing. Everybody here has a set of keys. Keys nowadays are expensive. If you lose your keys, or if your keys get stolen, you're not going to be able to get home, you're not going to be able to get in your house. It can be very problematic. So nowadays with cell phones and technology, there are a lot of ways that people can actually capture your keys. If you set your keys down on the desk and you go away, somebody can easily take a picture of your key, get on an app, and get a key made from that app sent to them. It can happen. It's not likely to happen, but that technology is out there now. It's something that has been, locksmiths have been able to do for decades now. It's just in app form like everything else. So that's one of the things that you do need to be real cautious with is where you leave your keys, even at work, you know, co-workers or whatever, maintenance people coming through. It's just really dangerous to leave your keys out. As far as home security goes, there are different grades of locks, and one of the main questions that we get about home security is like the electronic lock nowadays. That's one of the biggest questions people are asking about. You know, being able to get on an app and unlock your door for somebody or get notified when your door is open, and that's great if you have kids. There's a whole lot of product out there. I'm not overly familiar with that because most of it's sold at like Best Buy or online. But it is technology that is still kind of right there at the point where it hadn't been fully tested yet. There's a lot of problems with it right now. And a lot of people's, y'all's houses, the front doors that you do go through, a lot of people want to put those on your front doors, and sometimes they just don't work on your house. And if you're gonna look into buying one of those, you can always call our shop. I'll give you the number at the end here, but it's just one of those things where I don't really feel comfortable with a lot of them. There's a lot of stable platforms out there that have been around for a while, but some of the newest stuff I would recommend if you are going to get it. I definitely look at reviews, which we all know how reviews are on the internet, but it's just one of those things where get one where you're still able to use your existing locks and have a key bypass, because you don't want to get on one night and not be able to get in your house because your app doesn't work. So that's one of the things. And even with that, those locks are not great functionally. They're great as far as convenience, but they're not as high security or as good quality of just a regular mechanical key lock can be. And one other thing that a lot of people are updating their houses, putting in new doors, and I see this all the time when people call me out. You know, the people who hang the door will put the locks in, and doors come now where they're not fully prepped for correctly how they should be. And every time I've seen a new door, I had to fix two this morning over on Hawthorne, as a matter of fact. They're just not drilled fully. Anybody could just kind of rattle the door and push their way in. So I recommend that everybody go home and make sure your locks, when you throw your deadbolt, hopefully your door has a deadbolt, because that's the security for your door. You've got a knob and then an independent deadbolt. You want to make sure your deadbolt fully secures in the door. Now, of course, with our Yazoo clay, you know, you have to lift the door and push and pull, and that's very common. We do fix that. We fix it to the best of our ability, but, you know, Yazoo clay is Yazoo clay, and some people joke that, you know, my door is working better now than it ever has been. We must have shifted. And I actually had, several years ago, we called it the Great Shift of 2017 or whatever, where literally all of Robin Drive, every single house just shifted this way a little bit. And I spent 4 days working on every house, getting the doors locking again. So again, the main point of that is just to make sure your doors are locking. Make sure you do lock them. Make sure you lock your gates. You don't want people, even if you have just a chain link fence with a little flip lock, put a padlock on it. You don't want anybody just wandering back there. Even if you think, hey, they could just jump the fence, put a padlock on it, lock your, as this little note says, lock the storage rooms, storage sheds. There's been any number of times, especially in cold weather, where people have found people living in their shed out back. So if you have, you know, a lot of those, you can put a padlock on or a hasp. But the main point is just to make sure that you're very cognizant of where you leave your keys, that your doors are fully locking, that they have good secure screws. A lot of new locks, if you just buy a new lock and give it to a maintenance guy to put in, almost all of them come with just these little bitty short screws with door forced entry. If somebody kicks the door, the short screws are not securing the frame correctly. There's three things that will happen when a door gets kicked. The door itself will split, the frame will bust out, and that's because of those short screws, or the lock itself will break, and that's usually just a sign of an inferior lock. If you do want to know Schlage right now, Schlage brand, you say it different ways, people say it different ways, but it's Schlage is one of the better residential locks on the market. They're really beefy and at a good price point. So if you have any questions, again, after the thing, you can just ask me for that. And our shop's over in Fondren, right across from Walker's Drive-In. One last thing, these little kiosks that you see, this is kind of a pet peeve of mine. These little kiosks where you can stick your key in and get it made, that's just, I'm not saying that to try to get you to come buy my keys. I'm just saying that for your own sanity, because if you walk, I call it the juicy wiggle, when you try to get your key to work and you're sitting there wiggling the key, trying to get it to work, that takes you time getting in your house. It's not safe. It can cause your key to break off in your lock and you're locked out of your house. So I would suggest using a reputable locksmith company. Of course, I would suggest us over in Fondren, but because we do use US-made keys, everywhere else uses Taiwan, Chinese. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to cut the keys. So we try our best to do everything possible to get accurate keys so you won't get locked out of your house when it breaks in your lock. So that's all I can think of, and I appreciate y'all having me. Thanks, Fondren, for having me out.
And I'm gonna add two things there very quickly. Personal experience. I had one of these really great keys. There's a really huge end of it. It was Darth Vader. It was awesome, and I loved it. And you remember me telling you. And I got to the house one night, and my door, I have to pull real hard on to try to get to do. If it did wrong, that key just snapped straight off. Fortunately, there was enough left that I was able to just barely drag that sucker out of there. But I was sweating for a few minutes because it can happen. The other thing that I wanted to mention too, because he was talking about making sure there's locks. You know, we tend to think about the front of the house, and you would probably be the expert here. But you know, the front of the house is not. Everybody can see that. The back of the house is a real danger. It's not just making sure the front of the house is secure, it's looking at the back of the house as well. Back doors, side and back windows, places you don't normally go. Because if you're not thinking about it, who knows what can happen. In the days of leaving the back door unlocked for people to come and go, you know, I mean, we just don't live in that world anymore. So, to speak on things from a slightly different perspective, we have, and I hope I remember this correctly, this has been a long day for me, Andy Case with the Department of Insurance, if I remember the proper name. He's going to come talk to us about things from an insurance perspective. And then we'll do some questions and answers after that, okay?
First of all, thank you for having us here. I've got a couple of colleagues here. Allison Alford is our consumer services outreach person. This is what she does. I heard you had wine tonight, so I said, I've got this one. Also, Mary Ellen Dillard, she works directly for our Commissioner of Insurance. If he is where he's supposed to be and he's on time, you can thank her. If he's not, it was not her fault, I promise you. Commander, thank you for all that you and your folks do. We appreciate you very much. Thank you. Real quick, our agency is a little more complex than what you think. We're not just sitting in the Woolfolk building looking at insurance rates. That's not all we do. We have a consumer services division, which is my division. And one thing we do that the public's not aware of is we help any citizen of the state of Mississippi with an insurance problem. If you have a claim you can't get paid, that you think a decision's been incorrectly made, if you have a policy issue, if you have a question about purchasing insurance before you purchase it, you already know what you're buying, you can call us. We got a staff of 13 people. We've got an office in Jackson, we have another one in Biloxi, and that's what we do. And these events like this are what we do. This is what we're for in that division. On the topic of thefts and burglaries tonight,
I've got some national statistics for you, and we'll talk about nationally, and then we'll talk about maybe locally how that applies here, and then we'll talk about the insurance part of it. But nationally, there's 2.5 million burglaries reported annually. 66% of those are home related. Only 13% are ever solved. If you watch the news this past holiday season, they reported over 26 million Christmas gifts stolen from the front of homes. That's a record number. Also, a part of an investigative report on ABC, they had a UPS driver who was texting people as he was delivering gifts, and the people behind him were friends of his, and they were running about 10 minutes behind him, grabbing gifts off the front porch. So it is a problem. Nationally, rates are higher in summer. Now, why are they higher in January here? Well, it is 70 degrees outside. That has a lot to do with it. When you look at a national rate, the cold weather a lot of times deters criminal activity and burglaries. Of burglars who were caught and took part in the study, 83% admitted that they looked for evidence of a home alarm before committing the crime. Of the 83% that looked for a home alarm, 60% changed their mind when they saw evidence of a home alarm. So it is a big deterrent. 36% of larceny is reported from vehicle break-ins. I am a victim of vehicle break-in. I was in Starkville, moving my youngest son into school. We moved him in late that night, and I was in a gated community. He followed me to where we were staying, and he got out of his truck and locked his truck. I did not lock mine. Woke up to a pounding on the door, Starkville Police Department, and said, "You may want to check your vehicle. We've got reports of break-ins." There were 27 vehicles broken in after midnight. That's when we got back from moving him in. I had a gun stolen. Interestingly, my son had a very expensive gun in his truck, and it was not stolen simply because he locked it and I didn't lock mine. Of course, he looked at me and said, "Dad, why didn't you lock it?" I said, "We're in a gated subdivision." He said, "Yeah, whatever." Anyway, that's still your best preventative, your preventative measures to keep from becoming a victim of theft. One of the things from an insurance standpoint we see is theft of tailgates. Why is that?
Rear cameras.
Rear cameras. The Ford tailgate has 2 latches on it, okay? When you lower it, it's got 2 cables. The cables simply turn a quarter of a turn and come off, and the tailgate lifts off. There's no bolts holding it on. It has a rear camera right below the Ford emblem that sells for about $400. You can take a tailgate off of a Ford truck quicker than you can do anything else. Wow. So that's a big deal. Talk a little bit about insurance. What happens if you're the victim of a theft? The coverage that pays for theft on a vehicle is comprehensive coverage. The same coverage you use if you hit an animal, if you replace your windshield, or if you're a victim of hail damage. Comprehensive coverage will pay for theft as well as vandalism of a vehicle. Now, what if you have personal effects in that vehicle that are stolen? Is that a homeowner policy or is that auto? It can be both. It can be both. Many insurance policies on the auto side allow for personal effects coverage up to a limit. The limit typically that we see on a typical ISO form is $500. If you have an item in your car that's valued over $500, it would fall under your homeowner policy. But keep in mind, your homeowner policy typically has a much higher deductible than auto. So let's say your windows are broken out and you have items stolen out of your car. Well, if the window's broken out, you've already applied a portion of that damage to your deductible. So the items in your car, therefore, you've got more coverage for those. Make sense? Heard an argument about, do I lock my car or do I not lock it? In my situation in Starkville, if I had not had anything valuable in the vehicle, I would not have had any damage. I would not have had any financial loss. When we were outside, it was a group of condominiums, and the people next to us, they were also victims as well, but they didn't have anything valuable in the car. They left the car unlocked. The car had been ransacked. Papers were scattered out, but they lost nothing. There was no damage. The car door was open. They didn't find what they needed. They left. The point of this is your best preventative measure is to not leave anything valuable in the car. Now, I can't tell you if you lock the car, they're not going to break the glass out. In my son's case, he had a $1,400 gun in his vehicle. It was still there. They didn't break the glass out, I'm assuming because they were concerned about the alarm going off. So there's really no, I can't tell you how to do that except limit your exposure by not leaving anything valuable in the car, especially inside. Additionally, I've had folks say, well, I'm going to leave my car unlocked, and I don't have any valuable in it. If the car is stolen, there are certain insurance policies that will not pay for theft of that vehicle without evidence of forced entry. Now, how do you have evidence of forced entry if the car's gone? They're looking for glass in the ground. We handle complaints from folks all the time. We've had complaints from consumers saying, I turn in a claim to an insurance company. They're giving me a hard time about the coverage because there's no evidence of forced entry. And so what happened? Well, I left the keys in it, and I left it unlocked, and the sunroof was open. Now, that can happen. That's not my point, but and it's not every insurer. There are some companies that have very limited protection. It depends on the type of risk they write in the company. These are conversations you need to have with your insurance agent. I am a firm believer in old school insurance, which is have a good agent and sit down and have a conversation. My agent has no idea that I work for the Department of Insurance. No clue. He bought a book of business from someone I used to work with in insurance. He has no idea who I am. Yet I'm very impressed that he called me and left a message. He has 1,100 customers in this book of business. He called me and left a message in December. He said, Mr. Case, he said, I'm calling all my customers. It's the end of the year. I'd like to sit down with you and let's just look at your insurance, your protection. I don't know you. I don't know your family, but I'd like to know more about you, and I need to know if the coverage that we're giving you is what you need. If you haven't had this conversation, call me. So I'm a firm believer in a good agent. I don't know how long I've been talking, but that's pretty much all I've got. We're going to do a question session.
We will. Thank you, sir. All right. I don't know how we're going to handle all this. I hadn't thought this through just yet. Other than, obviously, you're going to have to direct where your question, I guess, needs to go, unless multiple people. And I know Sarah is dying to ask one. I see her hand already.
Not dying, but I had on my mind, insurance commissioner. You talk about things that are left in your car and it's been broken into, and you file a claim. Do you have to have pictures of that actual item that was stolen in the car to prove that you have that? Or do you just have to have a bill of sale? What?
You don't have to have anything.
Are you kidding?
No, insurance, insurance has more fraud associated with it than any other business line you can imagine, because they don't require anything. They're going to ask you if you can prove what you had in that car, if you can prove ownership. If you had a laptop, do you have a receipt? I can promise you, I don't have a laptop. I don't have a receipt for my son's laptop. I don't know where it is. I'm in this business, and I ought to know better. Okay? I started saving receipts, but they're going to look at a lot of things. They're going to look at your lifestyle. If you report that you had a $12,000 diamond ring in the vehicle, they're going to know why, and they're going to be looking for something. It depends on the item stolen, what you're reporting. And, you know, we had people report, for instance, for a home burglary. They reported electronics stolen, and the insurance company said, your house ain't big enough to support all this stuff. So now we're going to start asking hard questions. And they can deny a claim if they feel like the facts don't warrant what's reported stolen.
Right. But so, inside your house, if you have a lot of electronics or fur or silver, you have to have that under a special license.
You do. There's a limit. There's a limit of $2,500 for guns.
At what point do they say, okay, this will be covered, but you know,
when you reach a monetary limit, there's a jewelry limit of $2,500, I believe. Guns are $1,500 to $2,500. Electronics, there's a limit. That's the conversation you have with an agent. Okay. Because I bought insurance with the company that I'm with when I was 20 years old. I'm still with them. I'm better off now than I was. I ain't a lot better off. I'm a little bit better off. I've had a kid since then. But my point is, there comes a time we got to update things. We got to talk about that. My situation's changed. So yeah, there's a limitation. Understand what it is, and know what your protection needs are. I saw on that secure your home sheet, somebody mentioned an inventory.
Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah. I started my first home inventory. I'm 53 years old. I started my first home inventory a year ago. I haven't finished it yet. And the reason I started it is, if you lose everything in your house, let's just say it's a tornado, your contents limits let's say your license is $70,000. If you lose everything, they're not gonna cut you a $70,000 check.
No, you have to prove it.
You gotta list every item you had, every spoon, towel, dish rag, pair of underwear, socks, all of it. Picture, you gotta list that stuff.
And you better have it out of the house.
Well, the problem is they're in a traumatic situation, lost everything. You're asking them to sit down and list all that stuff, where it was bought, what you paid for it, how old is it, and they can't do that. But the reason for that is when you buy a homeowner policy, they're gonna value the dwelling, but the contents limits is assigned as a percentage of the dwelling.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever really had that conversation with the agent, you just get a number.
Yeah.
Well, it's up to you to prove that you had up to that.
Yeah.
So, I started the contents list a year ago, I got really frustrated, so I went to the house with a camera, video, recorded everything.
Yeah.
It's on my phone.
That's it, it takes a long time to do.
Now,
not
God
just
forbid I have to
video,
sit down and list
but
all this
go
stuff.
back
I
and
got
list
that video.
it, and how much you bought
Yeah.
it for, it just takes forever.
It's impossible. I can't prove where I bought it, I can't prove what it cost, but I promise you, I got a video hanging on my wall, everything,
Yeah,
and that's all I need.
and do you send that to the cloud, or what do you do with the?
I'm not that technological. It's on my phone.
You better not have that
It's
in
on
your
my
house.
phone, and I've actually saved a copy to my computer at my office.
Email
Okay.
it to yourself, and then it's on a separate server.
Okay.
Look, I got all my passwords written down on a piece of paper on a wallet. I'm not that complex.
I know.
Well, and you know, the interesting thing about that is, because you said a second ago, and like I've even said, you know, if you read this list, you can find at least 2 or 3 things on here that we know we all do. And you know that all it takes is that split second. And then, so, Jeff, you had a question?
Yeah, what's the best way to let would-be intruders know that you have a security system besides a little sign?
I'm gonna leave that to Commander, but I know these security signs do a lot, I mean,
Really?
that's.
Even if you don't have one, even if you don't have one, they think you do. Yeah, it's been proven.
I've got
The stickers
one,
on windows.
I've got one, and I never, when I bought my house, I never hooked it up. I left the sign in the yard.
Can I jump in on that? So really, I didn't really get to that, but it's, home security is kind of a multi-layered defense. I saw something on Nextdoor about lights not doing any good. And we've all seen people post Ring video doorbells, and people stealing their package. And they never get their package back, and people never get arrested. So it's a multi-layered defense. The signs are one of the layers, lights are another layer. Nothing's gonna work by itself, but if you layer everything together and have a layered defense, good locks, good lighting, signs out, obvious signs, or obvious cameras, all that put together will definitely help.
A good agent is gonna ask you those questions and apply discounts to your insurance.
I was gonna ask you that about
Absolutely.
discounts too.
Because mine called me after 6 months when I didn't hook it up.
It's the totality of everything that you do. Do the lighting, do good door locks. I've had it into my house to change out my lock whenever I bought the house. I have a sign, I have an alarm, I have a safe that I have all of my guns in. It's the totality of everything that you do to protect yourself, protect your property, protect your family. That's what you need to think about, not one, not the other, everything.
And I'm not the expert here by any means, but having, you know, a little reading in and looking, I'd ask everybody, if you saw anything on Nextdoor, bring a friend, bring a neighbor, because, you know, to me, it's more than just you. Because if you've got everything locked down and everybody else on the street doesn't, and they see that, they're gonna come all the way down the street regardless. And it's kind of a thing where we've all got to get together, and if you've got a whole street that is lit up like a Christmas tree, hedges trimmed, signs everywhere, people are gonna look at that and go, nope, we're gonna go somewhere where it's easier, because a lot of times these people are looking for quick and easy, in and out and be done.
I wish the city had brighter lights. I don't like these orange glow things.
Okay,
I know they're.
Crane and Old Canton, and there's one light in a tree at the top of a tree, and they trimmed it, still doesn't make a difference, and it is pitch black. Because I drive for Uber in the evenings, and I'm out on the streets, and I see there are some places, but y'all, even over here is a lot better than there are some other places in other parts of town that are much darker than where we are. And I was going to say too, real quick, with the, because we're talking about security. They do make fake security cameras, and the only thing I know, and again, I'm not an expert, but I've done some reading. Look for the ones that have a solid light rather than a flashing one. Because most of the real cameras wouldn't have a flashing light to say over recording. It's usually a solid light. So that's just a little tidbit. And then I have another question.
Yeah, and my question was about security cameras. Is the research on that really makes a difference to have cameras?
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised how many crimes are solved in Jackson through business cameras or personal home cameras. I've gone to roll call and got somebody's video from that morning and go to the evening shift roll call, and I've had officers say, oh, I know who that is and where they live. It's so helpful, it's unbelievable.
Does it prevent?
I've seen criminals
You
walk
think-
away from when
Okay.
they'll look at the camera and then just turn around and walk off. So yes, it does prevent. The Ring doorbells, like I said, I've seen lots of videos where they steal the packages, and I think it's because it's so indiscreet. You
Yeah,
know, they're not looking at the house, they're looking at the packages. But if you have a real deal camera in a corner or something, or even a fake camera, they're gonna look and they're gonna see that and then leave. And I've seen a lot of videos where people do just walk off.
There's too many better options down the street that don't have cameras.
Right, you
It's
wanna
just too
pass
easy.
them down to your neighbor. Yeah.
I can tell you from personal experience, they come down Sherwood, which is where I live, and I got 2 cameras in front of my house, and they will literally go around my house. I mean, I've seen it on camera, so they don't even come to, like, there was one night where they went all the way down one side, didn't even come back to our side of the street until they got past our house. So, cameras work. They don't want to be seen.
Yes, ma'am.
So shifting gears just a little bit, so for reporting crimes, so we have the emergency 911, we got the non-emergency, the 960-1234. Are there things like the tips 411, is that still active? I know that there's Crime Stoppers also.
Right.
So what are the different ways, and then also what are some ways that are anonymous too? So I guess it's a twofold question.
Make sure you know, like I said, 911 or 960-1234 or the tips line. But generally on the tips line, that's usually wanting to turn somebody in, or you know something that may be involved in this particular crime. Because I had a situation it's been about a month ago, where a guy called me, didn't want me to know who he was, gave me information about a motorcycle that was posted on Craigslist, or no, some other website. Long story short, he was involved in a house burglary where they got the motorcycle, and it was a very unusual motorcycle. It wasn't one that was very common. Long story short, the owner got the motorcycle back, but then he wanted the tips money. Well, he didn't call the tips line, and he didn't give his information to them, so he didn't get the money. So, and like you said, next door, that's a good thing, and I've got my number, call the precinct. We'll use all avenues possible to help y'all.
So is Crime Stoppers different than tips 411?
I really don't know, to be honest with
It
you.
is.
And they also offer rewards.
They offer
for
the
that.
reward, the 355 tips, Crime Stopper, yes, there is a fund out there where somebody wants to give a tip, get somebody called, they give them a code. That code is where they would cash in if that person is called.
Yeah, that was the problem on that motorcycle.
Yeah.
Because he didn't call them first to get that code.
Yeah, they'll give them a code, and that's how they get paid.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
Yes, I was just gonna say, my house was broken into a couple years ago, and Jason came and fixed up my doors, and what is it, you did extra protection, so if they tried to kick it in, they couldn't, is that like a strike
That's
plate?
There's
or
a bigger strike
I
plate.
didn't
It's
see
some,
that on here, and that's really awesome.
right, yeah, some doors can have it, some can't, just like, the electronic locks, but there are a lot heavier duty options that we have available that you can put into a door that would make it, not kick proof, but a lot more kick resistant. A lot of times if somebody kicks on a door, the house that I was at this morning had been hit twice, and end of November, beginning of December, they kicked one door that I had worked on 2 months prior to that. They couldn't get through that door because there was big, like 2 boot prints on it. And then they went around back and broke a handle off. So yeah, so it's the security strips, what we call them, if they can be mounted on your doors, and yeah, there are a good thing. And you can always come to our shop and check it out. We've got one hanging on the wall actually at the shop. So it's basically just a long strike plate with long screws. It turns the wood frame into kind of a steel clad frame, which helps.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask the insurance man about insurance rates based on like crime statistics, or there's a state rating bureau or something that helps the insurance companies, and people like, Jackson, where we may have a lot of uninsured motorists, or a lot of burglaries, or whatever, that affects our premium.
Yeah, the state rating bureau really is and it's unique to our state and several others, but they are involved with fire protection class codes, making sure that your fire protection is sufficient and grading it. Now, on to the rest of your question, it's a really interesting conversation. You're getting into risk pools. What risk pool are a member of? Is it a zip code? Is it a neighborhood? Who's in my risk pool? Because we get calls all the time that my rates went up and I haven't filed a claim in 20 years. Well, keep in mind the way insurance works. You gotta have a lot of people buy into it. Can't everybody use it at the same time? But the more it's used, the more it costs. The uninsured motorist situation, I'm actually going to speak on in April at Mississippi State School of Risk Management, because they're getting all the insurance agents together at the state to talk about the UN problem. We have a new law spearheaded by Gary Chisholm a few years ago to allow for real-time verification of insurance. In other words, right now, if I go buy an insurance policy from you, I'm going to give you a down payment. Just say it's $1,200 every 6 months. I'm going to give you a $200 down payment. Well, you give me a card that's a 6-month card. It shows I'm good through the end of July. Well, I don't have to make my next payment, but the card still says I'm good. Or I can print my own card up at home. These guys will tell you, every company, it's hard to tell when you got a fake card. There's no way to tell. So the state passed a law that allows for real-time verification. They run your VIN number, tag number, and they can tell whether or not you paid your insurance the last night. And it requires all the insurance companies to dump their data into a bank. The problem is when we passed the law, the state realized our computer antiquated and couldn't handle the data. So it was a couple of years before we got that resolved. And I understand that is resolved now. The Department of Public Safety is in charge of that. And they're trying to roll that out statewide. But is still a problem. I mean, you have to show proof of insurance to go get your car tagged. You do have to show it to your driver's license, I believe, and that's just for the driving test, though. We still got a big problem here with uninsured motorists. And when you talk about risk pools, it goes with homeowners as well. There's some things I can't explain. I can't explain to you why Tupelo has had a tornado on the same path 3 times in 11 years. I don't understand that. But those people they're in a tornado path. The last tornado hit 3 years ago. We went up there. It was the same places I visited before, same homes. The one that hit Petal in Hattiesburg 2 years ago, I drove down there within 2 hours of that thing happening and saw 3 homes that I visited just 2 years before. Damaged again, lost the roof. So weather events I can't explain, but when you're a member of a risk pool, you look at what's happening with everyone in the pool, and everyone with similar risk characteristics, it's kind of assess the same thing. And then you get down to individual characteristics, you individually. But at the end of the day, we're all members of a specific risk pool. There are consumer groups nationally looking at it really hard right now, making sure that the data supports the pricing. Your commissioner, I don't mean to get long-winded here, but your commissioner is he's one of 14 elected commissioners in the U.S. The rest are appointed by governor. You got 14 that are elected by the public. He's looking at this really, really closely, and he's actually the one that has been overseeing this. So, when you look at insurance laws in Mississippi and what we abide by and the laws we have and the policies, the way they read, nothing comes into Mississippi that didn't go nationwide. Okay, we're pretty smart, we ain't that smart, but collectively, when you get with all 50 states, we can figure things out. There's the National Association of Insurance Commissioners where all this is done. If you look at the laws here, they're similar to Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, with just minor nuances. The 50 commissioners in the U.S. elect which commissioner peer they want to oversee each group. The one in Mississippi, your commissioner, Mike Cheney, was elected to be chairman of the Property Casualty Committee. So that means nothing in the U.S. that comes to California, Texas, New York, anywhere, Florida, does not go through him. That's how highly they think of him from a property casualty standpoint. And that's one of the things we're working on right now. We're in the process of collecting data to make sure that the zip code data supports the pricing. If you got more crime in this zip code, and the pricing is a little higher than the zip code, it's all got a correlate match. That's one of the things we look at. Long answer to a short question, sorry.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? No?
I do have one more.
Sure.
I live on one of the streets that's now a detour. And I think Northview is one of the streets also. The traffic is at least doubled, at least. Have y'all seen any patterns of crime having to do with?
I hadn't seen any crimes, but I've gotten some complaints of people driving the wrong way, and I put a direct patrol on it, and in contact with the traffic unit to kind of monitor that as well. But no crime increase that I'm aware of.
When is the bridge open up? Do you know? Anybody know?
No. Well, we can go ahead and finish up, but I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of homework. Y'all came, and we are so glad that you're here. Thank you very much. There are a lot of people who, for whatever reason or another, didn't show up. Think about this, because as I put this together, and I spent some time looking at some stuff, if you don't know everybody around you, definitely get to know people on your street, in your area. If you have people who, Sarah, I'm going to pick on you for 2 seconds. Because, Sarah, I won't pick on you for 2 seconds because you're retired. You're retired, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, see, and I have where I live kind of in what I call the UMC dorm, so I have kids in and out all day long. But I have a neighbor who is retired. She's at home a lot, and I'm always asking her, hey, if you see something at my door, can you please, keep an eye on it, call me, because I try to look out for myself and the people around and say, get to know people around you.
Oh, yeah.
And you need to let them know too, this is not a one-time thing. Your house can be secure looking as possible, but if the rest of the street is not, I'm not saying that you're not going to be targeted, but it just, if we're all doing the same thing, it makes it a whole lot easier.
There's a lot to be said for nosy neighbors. I love them.
Yep. They have their uses. I promise you.
I wish I had a rocking chair I could sit out on. But I did have to notify a neighbor recently that their garage door was open, and it was open longer than it normally would be. And I just said, your garage door is open.
I'm telling you, it is honestly worth it.
If Natalie had another neighbor, there was none of her
So you got, I really don't want to throw these away. So what I would like for you to do is wherever there's an empty handout, would you pick one up, take it home with you, and give it to a neighbor and say, hey, because everybody needs to see this stuff. And y'all, I'm telling you, when I read what you should and should not do, even with a car, I mean, like I said, now I drive for Uber, so my car is state. I try to keep it clean. But I look at this and it's like, well, I do this, and I do this, and I do this. And even though I have some tinted windows now, I still have all this, and it's like, that bothers me sometimes.
Yeah.
So just hand these out to neighbors. I'm going to try to put a PDFs posting and a general post won't work. I got to find a way to make a photo of it. And I'm going to try to do that and see if I can get that posted next door so that we have that as well to let people know. And encourage people to pay attention to be vigilant, because if we start now, next week when this kicks off, and I'm hoping it doesn't even happen, I'm hoping we have a downturn, but I'm afraid that we're meeting it head on, okay? And if you enjoyed the food before you leave, please take a minute and thank Dawn Mackey. If you like the cookies, that's Debbie's fault in the back. She's our master baker. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming. Like I said, take some of these home with you if you would, please. And Dawn is waving fanatically here. She has to-go plates. If you want some food, she's saying take it with you. There's only one thing up there that is full fat and has meat in it. Everything else is nice and resolution friendly. Please go help yourselves before you leave. Thank you for coming. Thank you. I appreciate it.